Okay. Great. Okay, and then Robin, you are welcome to start it off.
Am I the host now?
Yes.
Very good. So let me share my screen. The big green button. Whoop, went into the presentation now. I just had it. Uh-oh. Where'd it go? Bear with me 1 second. I had it open. Maybe I just go back to where I was. Hang on. No, bear with me 1 second. Sorry. Can you see that? Bricks to clicks. Good.
Yep.
Oh, you're on mute. Sorry. So hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this gorgeous sunny day in Seattle. Hopefully we'll have a lot more like this going forward. It just gives me so much energy and it makes me feel like anything is possible. So this is part 2 of the e-commerce marketing for Pike Place Market vendors. And it takes into account that you have a physical space, but we've been talking about how do you get online. The last one we talked about, uh-oh, I just got bounced out. Sorry, that was weird. Sorry about that. Oh, very strange. Something on my computer. Last time we talked about the platforms for building your site and the components of an e-commerce site and all those things. And that is available, or it will be available as a recording. And there's also a presentation PDF that's available. And this one will be available if you don't have it already as a presentation PDF, and it is being recorded. So this one is very much about how do you get found once you have a site, and then how do you convert customers? And how do you measure that and see if what you're doing marketing wise is working? And then part 3 is going to be more about promotion beyond search engine optimization. So here are the main parts that we talked about last time in terms of what you need to be successful in e-commerce. But today we're going to talk about the keywords and SEO, search engine optimization once again, and then merchandising so you convert customers once they do get to your site. Because if you don't have the right content on a site, you don't have the right imagery and product and tell your story successfully, you're not necessarily going to get new customers. And we're going to talk specifically about more merchandising things. I'm using that term very broadly, like free shipping. Do you have to have it or not? So stay tuned. So the first thing I want you to think about is, how does traffic arrive at an e-commerce site? And these are just averages. What you do is going to be different because, first of all, you may not be known online, not yet, unless you've had your e-commerce store for a while. And also you have a physical space too. And that impacts, as we talked about in part 1, how much traffic you get to your site and how much e-commerce influences having a store. So first of all, when someone knows a business, that is known as direct. They saw someone's business card or they read about the business somewhere and they literally typed in the website address, and that accounts for about 50% of the traffic on average. If people don't know you, that percentage is going to be less. And then search traffic, which is the impact of your search engine optimization, how people go to Google and find and then end up at your site, the search traffic is about 20%. And that could be more or less depending on how well you optimize your site. And we're going to talk about how you do that today. And then referral traffic comes from other websites, like somebody clicked on a link and they ended up at your site. Now, depending how much people are talking about you and they hear about you in other places, that will impact how much referral traffic you get. And then advertising is literally putting ads out there and people clicking on them, and you can measure that traffic as well. And that really depends whether you're advertising or not. But in general, and on average, this is how traffic gets to a website. And they're all impacted by things we're going to talk about today. Keywords, search engine optimization. There are things you can do with Google tools. I call the Google stack, which we're going to talk about. And then also link building, which we're going to talk about in part 3, which is part of the other promotional things you could do to drive traffic. But the thing about link having links, or in other words, the referral traffic coming in from somewhere else, Google uses that to value how much they should rank you in search results. So it's kind of partly a search engine optimization thing, and partly other things we do to get recognition and exposure, and then links back to the website. So how the linking works, which is very important, is your website is that big heart in the middle. And then you have other websites, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? H, whatever. The idea there is that you get an article placed, or someone writes about you on a blog, or you have social media posts with a link back to your website. There are all kinds of ways to generate links. And we'll talk about how to get those, as I said, in part 3, but understanding this basic concept of other sites linking to you is a critical aspect and a key signal to Google that your site is worth paying attention to, because other sites, particularly sites that are high authority websites, ones that get a lot of traffic, or associations or organizations. In fact, you just getting a link from Pike Place Market, the landing page that they have, to you is valuable. So being part of this whole group really does help you. So how does this work literally? Well, on the left, we have kind of an article I got written about in SEO blog, just some post that they mentioned my website and my business, and they gave me a link back to my website address. And that link goes right to my homepage, blockbeta.com. In your case, it would be yourbusinessurl.com.co, whatever you have, linking back to your main homepage. That's one way to go. Another way to go is that there could be other content, like it could even be content you control, like your newsletter, or you could have a byline in an article that is specific, that goes to a page that you specify. So it could be your domain / and then a specific like other page, like an about page, or it could be an advertisement, something like an ad going to a landing page that you want to say, here, sign up for X. So you can control that and say where you want that to link to, but it could be any page on your website. And often that's a good user experience, because if you're offering a specific thing, like a sale or a coupon or whatever you're doing, you don't want to really link someone to a homepage and then they have to go search for it. You want to take them directly to what you were promising and explain to them. So you carry through the message from the ad or whatever you're doing to that specific page. Like even in your newsletter, you could mention a blog article and link them to that blog on your website, that particular story. So thinking about what Google cares about so you can rank the best possible way. Well, Google is all about being more human. They're using, you can't really trick Google trying to play the Google game. I wouldn't bother with that. If you just go according to what Google literally cares about, you're going to do fine. So they're all about matching meaning. They want to just say, hey, somebody's looking for organic natural soap, and then you deliver content that's about organic natural soap. And that's how you can rank. So here you have the search in the pink bar at the top. And then at the bottom, someone has optimized their information, and we're going to show you how to do that. So it makes that connection so you can show up on hopefully one of the leading pages with related content. And you can't get at the top because these are all ads. As you can see, they all have ad, ad, ad. That's paid advertising, which we're not going into today. I'm going to talk about that in part 3 a little bit. So what literally can impact your ability to rank? What are the signals you send to Google that help you do better in search? Well, the first thing is you need a fast loading mobile website. And we talked about this in part 1, that if you have one of the key platforms like Shopify or whatever, and you have a good theme, and like if you're using WordPress, even if you have a good host that delivers sites quickly, then you should be okay. And there are certain things you could do within your page to make it mobile and load faster. And that has a lot to do with just having images that are even the right size, that they're not really bulky. I mean, more in file size, not to mention. So there are ways to make the site faster. And then you want to have attractive content. And what attractive content is that you're matching the meaning, as we just spoke about. That whatever somebody is searching for, you have content that answers those questions, delivers on what someone needs. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but also I believe in part 3, we're going to get more into that. How do you create content beyond the homepage that is meaningful? And then click-throughs from organic search. Now, what that means is when you show up in the search results and someone sees you and then they literally click on it. And we're going to talk about how do you write content there that encourages people to click through. So you having someone just click through is a signal to Google that they showed the right information to the visitor. Because Google, at the end of the day, the way they make money is creating a great search experience. And the better the search experience, the more Google is doing its job. And the more Google does its job, the more ads it can sell. So that's really, basically how Google works and how they make their money. So then if your website is localized and personalized, in other words, if somebody's looking for something near them, and Google knows that your site or your store is near where they're looking, that is very good. And this is why having also a physical space is very helpful for search results. And then personalizing it is related to Google knowing something about the searcher. They're logged into Google, they know the location and other things about how they searched. And some of that data is starting to be hidden by Google, some new changes with that. But generally, at least the local and the location becomes important. And we'll talk more about how you do that as well. And then getting reviews on Google. The first thing you're going to need to do is sign up for Google My Business. And we'll talk about that. If you aren't signed up for already, you absolutely must do that. And that will help. And then you get reviews there. And I'll show you how we do that. And then earned media shared across networks. That's social media stuff. And that's public relations stuff. Things you're not paying for, not ads. And then people seeing that content and then sharing it to other people. Google uses some of that data to help you rank. And then finally, if you do advertising, this indirectly impacts organic, but it isn't a direct result. So organic, what we mean by that is that when people type in keywords and then you see organic results, not ads. But it's very indirect. So you can't just say, I'm going to advertise and help my organic. You need to do all these other things first. So quality on-site content, what do we mean? Well, first of all, clearly identify your unique selling proposition, your USP, and become an authority. Even if you're selling soap, come across as the place for natural or organic natural herb soap, something specific. Just organic natural soap that's so overused already, having a longer tail, more descriptive, and own that particular phrase can be very helpful to help you rank in search results. The next part is think about the questions people are asking when they're searching and have content that answers those questions. Not sales data, but literally, if they're asking about organic natural herb soaps, talk about that. What herbs? What do you mean by natural? What do you mean by organic? What flavors do you have? Like really dig deep on content that is going to really satisfy what people are looking for. Oh, sorry about that. And then you want to reduce the bounce rate. And basically what that means is people hit one page and leave. And mostly we're talking about the homepage here, but it can happen on a blog where you get a lot of bounces, but I'm not going to get into that detail at the moment. But the idea is you're communicating to Google that if people show up and leave, that Google sent somebody to your page, but they didn't find what they were looking for. And that's a signal to Google that that wasn't a good fit. And then it will hurt your rank. And we're going to talk about how do you reduce bounce rate in like a second. after this last bullet here. So then having quality, engaging, shareable, linkable information on different entry pages on your website. And once again, we're going to go deeper into some of that content later, but it's not all about sales. It's not all about having pages with a bunch of links on it. That could actually hurt you. You want to have good quality information as if you're speaking to a real customer. That is helpful. And then when we think about bounce, so the average bounce rate is roughly between 20 to 45%. If you had anything near zero, there's probably something wrong. So you don't really want to get that in your data. Something between 20 and 45 is good. And the idea is once you see your main bounce rate is to make it better. And you can make it better by, as we said, delivering on search of what people are looking for. Make a good case for what you do. How are you different? How are you better? Have reviews, have testimonials, whatever it is. And don't have a really confusing page. Make it clear, make it straightforward. People can find what they need and then dive deeper into your site so they don't just visit the homepage and leave. You want to have good design, and that's often taken care of with the template that you pick. And then, of course, picking your own colors, fonts, that kind of thing. Make it clear, make it load quickly, having good content that is good for the visitor, something that they are interested in, and having good navigation, not confusing, easy to use, that kind of thing. Add links that go deeper into the page, so you encourage people to get off that home page ultimately and go deeper into your website, like send them to an article to read, have different kinds of calls to action, not only to buy now, but to read more, learn more, whatever it is. And then having links within the page with keywords. Google likes that as well. So all these things will contribute to reducing, or not only reducing bounce for Google, but getting people deeper into your site, which is good because the more they're interested in what you're saying, the more likely they will get to know you and ultimately purchase something, which is the whole idea of an e-commerce site. Anyway. So how do we measure bounce? How do we know what our bounce rate is? Well, this is a little snapshot of Google Analytics, and it's comparing 2 time periods. And you can see that this little slash indicates the home page. And on the right, these are what we call quality metrics, like how well is my site doing? Not so much about overall driving traffic, but are people staying? Like here we have a 65% bounce rate, which actually got worse. It went from 62 to 60, almost 66. So the idea there is that we need to look at the page and examine how we can improve it, maybe based on some of those things we just talked about. And then we have pages per session. This also went down in this case. And that indicates how many pages they literally went to, and they went to 2. Or a little more than 2. And then how long did they stay, which is measured by average session duration. And if you don't have Google Analytics yet, we're going to talk in a minute about where you go to sign up for that. And I often recommend Google Analytics because it's got so much data. I mean, this is just one little snapshot of what's available, but there's so much data that can help you improve not only how you drive traffic, what traffic is working, which I'll talk about later. And it can also say what in your pages could we do better, amongst even other data. So how do we do search engine optimization? Well, there are kind of 2 parts to this. One is the stuff you do on the page itself, the SEO on-site stuff. And then we have what we call search engine marketing. This is how I divide it. And this is stuff you do off the page, like getting those articles and other things posted, and then it links to your site. And they both impact how Google sees you, as we talked about, both the on-site stuff and those inbound links. The first thing you have to think about is keywords. Like what keywords are people using? And they're not what you think they are. Like you could say, I'm a floral designer, but that isn't how people search. At least we don't believe so. They look for their occasion for the flowers. I need wedding flowers, right? So there are ways to research this, which I'll tell you in the Google Stack. They give you some tools that show you what people literally are searching for. And then you can use those words in your website, and I'll show you how to use those to help your rank and help your search results. Now, all this stuff I'm talking about, I describe in my free guide. You can get at this link, and it explains it in more depth. But Google uses about 200 different parameters to decide how they're going to rank your site. So keywords is one thing. Relevance to the searcher, we talked about that, like local and personal. And then we have inbound links, which we also mentioned. And then there's so many more that help determine your rank. And Google is always changing their algorithm. So you shouldn't try to necessarily spend all your time trying to guess what's going to work. You need at least to start with these core components that I describe in this guide that will help you rank for a search, ultimately. So where does this stuff go? Well, first of all, on the left, we have just like a regular homepage that's visible to human beings. And on the right is the code, the HTML code that makes up the what your page is, the behind the scenes stuff. And Google can't really see literally. So they're pretty much looking at the stuff that's on the right. And you can add content to that, which I'll show you. But on the left, visually, this is what you're going to see, right? So you have Strut the Pup here, which is graphic text, and Google can't read that. But Google, I mean, in the back end, you can add text to the image file that Google can literally read. And we call that alt text, if you ever see that term. And you're using words that Google can literally understand and say, is this a good match for what people are looking for? But they can't read that logo per se. And then another important thing to Google is headlines. And in the code, that's known as an H1. And when you specify your fonts for your H1 when you're building your site, Google is also using that as a signal that there's important stuff there. And you want to make sure there are keywords in there. Like in this case, we have dog walking and pet sitting. And they also say Seattle, which is pretty important in this case. Not always, you don't always have to localize and have that in the headline, but this is one way to signal to Google what you're about. And then even putting keywords in that first paragraph, Google might pick that up. And they might pick that up for what is known as the meta description, which I'll show you where that is. So a lot of people think when they type in their business name and they show up on the first page, that that's really terrific. But that isn't really what we're looking for, because if people don't know you yet, they're not going to know to type in your name. So that is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is when somebody searches like psychographics by zip code, when they're looking for me as a marketing firm, because they're writing a business plan or I don't know, whatever. I wrote an article about this like in 2008. It's like ancient history at this point, but I still rank for this in Google and I still get traffic from it, which is amazing. So once you start getting some of this stuff up there, it can work for you continuously without you having to check on it all the time. If you can find the things that people are searching for and you write content about that, they're going to find you. So here is the article that I wrote, back in 2008. I titled it, Get Demographics and Psychographics by Zip. There's my business name on the right. The green is the URL. And then the stuff below it is what is known as the meta description. And the meta description can either be picked up by Google, or you literally can write your own meta description. And this will help drive click-through. Remember, we talked about that very important click-through rate. If you can write something compelling, something interesting, even write it like an ad itself and make it very page specific, there's a good chance somebody will click through. And that helps you in search, and it also gets more traffic to your website, ultimately, because the human being is seeing this result in search and then will click through. But you don't always control it. It's up to Google whether they reveal what they picked up from the page, like in this case, they picked up the opening of the blog post, or whether they picked up the description that you wrote. But I always recommend writing the descriptions because it gives you a better chance to really tell your story the way you want to, in a way you control. So when you have, when you want to write this material, for example, this is just the Shopify backend, but depending on where you built your site, they all have something very, very similar. So as at the top, you can see a replica of that search engine listing. But in this case, because it's on Shopify, it's a preview. But we wrote the title, what length should I choose for my dog's leash? And you can see how that came up in blue. And then we have the meta description. And you can see actually Google picked up literally our description. You know, it matches. And then the URL, we also put the keywords and the search term in the actual page URL. You can see at the bottom there. And the point I want to make here about grabbing ideas from the competitor ads is that a lot of people who write ads in your category have agencies and things like this spending a lot of effort trying to write really good ads. But you can take some of that language and rewrite it for yourself and use it for your description and see if you can improve your click-throughs with that. But these things can be modified over time so you can improve your numbers, improve your results. The other things you can do with your website, literally in the e-commerce space, to improve your search results is really think about how you set up your navigation. So at the top there, they have women, they have lingerie, they have men, girls. These are keywords that Google pays attention to. And then you have something called the breadcrumb, which is the little piece in the middle there where as the visitor goes to different pages, it kind of shows where they were. It's good to have that as well. And having good labels there is a good thing. And then having what they are known as an HTML sitemap. In other words, you have a page that lists how your website is set up. This can be very useful as well. And then page load speed. And you can check your site speed at a place called pingdom.com. And this signals to Google that you have a fast site that will be good in mobile. And they're very interested in mobile. You want to make sure your site looks good in mobile, but also loads quickly in mobile. And you want to optimize those images for speed. As I said, you want to make sure the file sizes are small, not the dimension per se, so they load quickly. The next thing you want to think about, that's all the stuff that goes on your site. Then there are a whole bunch of tools that Google provides for free that will help you manage your site, research keywords, do all kinds of things. So the first thing is get Google Analytics connected with your website. And you can use this to make sure your marketing is working. And the little link at the bottom is where you go to sign up. And then Google Search Console is the tool that Google provides so you can see how Google sees your website. Do you have broken links? How good is your visibility? You can go there and literally load their type of sitemap. This is not the HTML sitemap we just talked about, which is on your website. This is basically a URL that you give to Google. And it lets them know that this is where they go to search with their little robots or their little bots to make sure they're viewing all of the pages on your website. So very important to load a sitemap there. But they have all kinds of other information you can use as well. And then places to discover keywords. Now, there's all kinds of tools online for figuring out keywords, but Google's Keyword Planner is free. You have to sign up for their ads tool to get to it, but it doesn't mean you have to pay for ads. You can just use their tool, and it will show you how many people are searching for what. And the other tool that they offer is Google Trends. And this one's pretty cool to use because you can start to compare. Are they looking for organic soap or are they looking for natural soap? You can find out how much volume there is for those kind of search terms. And you can also see seasonality, which is interesting. Like if you search for things around Christmas, like Christmas ornaments, you're going to see a big curve in their graph. So just go there. You don't even have to sign up to go use it. It's a really fun tool to check out. And then if you want to run ads, eventually you're going to have to sign up for Google Merchant. This is specific to e-commerce. And then finally, Google My Business. And I'm going to show you what this looks like, but it results basically in the graph that shows up, what they call the knowledge graph, on the right side of the page. And there are all kinds of things you can do there. And it's free to sign up. And I definitely advise you to do that if you haven't already. But if you are already signed up for it, you can get reviews there. You can start posting there. You could add pictures. It's very valuable to make sure you maximize the use of that. So the other piece of data I just want to show you from Google Analytics, because we're talking about it again, is very specific to e-commerce. You can get data. Once you connect your e-commerce website to analytics, you will see data like this that tells you a lot about how your store is functioning. So in this case, we see conversion rate, like how many people came to the site, and then literally how many people bought as a percentage. And almost 2% really isn't that bad, believe it or not. There were 79 transactions. Here's the amount of revenue you derived, the average order value. And starting to see these numbers over time can be extremely valuable to tell you, is my marketing working? Do I have good stuff on my page? Is my merchandising working? So just being able to see snapshots like this is really great. So, and then the other deeper information you can get has to do with where were you doing your marketing and did you get the results? It's connecting the source of your traffic with the actual revenue you're deriving, which is the nirvana of marketing. I love that. So on the left-hand side, we have organic search. And that's the most important one we're talking about today, where you're seeing the results of your SEO and all the things you're doing to rank in Google. And you can see here, we got a fair amount of traffic, but it resulted in the most revenue. And the reason why organic is typically where you're going to get the best results is because people are literally looking for something specific, even something to buy. And then if you deliver on that, they have that buyer intent. It's already in their heads that they want to purchase something. And that's why organic results in better traffic than even advertising, and certainly better than social, as you can see on the right. I mean, we had zero. So first of all, we had very little traffic and we had no sales, right? The next best one was direct, which means they knew the website address. And we got the next highest amount of traffic, which kind of makes sense. And obviously the next amount of purchase. And this might be completely different for your web store. But this is just one indicator of what you're doing and what the result is. And I think it also points to the idea that organic is so important. And I always recommend doing organic first before I start advertising. Unless you're completely unknown, unless people can't find you through search, there are reasons to advertise, which we will talk about in part 3. So then when you sign up for Google Search Console, you get the opportunity to have this display on the left where it's all broken out like this when you load your sitemap. And then on the right, this is the result of Google My Business. And you can show your website, you can show your hours, you can have questions, you can even ask your own question and answer your own questions. You can get reviews and send people to this button specifically. And what will happen is you can see on my website, I've got these little stars, and that helps me really rank in the map. So getting these reviews becomes so critical to how you show up on search results. And being that you're local, even if they don't buy at your e-commerce store, if they find you this way and then go to the market and find you, that's really great too. So it can help both sides of what you're doing. And once again, here's the map. You can see the stars, how that shows. And this, Google is all about resolving searches that show the localization. So coffee shop near me, Cafe Vita, what time Cafe Vita, you know, all the things that people search for locally. This is what Google is trying to do. And this is why it's so important to sign up for Google My Business. And in your website, making sure that you have content that talks about things that are local. So when you sign up for Google My Business, GMB, you want to pick the right category too. Very important. So you can just go see what competitors are using. Not all the categories are perfect, but try to pick the one that's closest to what you're doing. Have a consistent name, address, phone between Google My Business and what's on your website. Also very important. And then on your website, combining what you do with the location is very useful for this localizing thing as well. Like we're a plumber in Wallingford, but in your case, we're a shop at the market. And here's just a snapshot of the Google My Business dashboard. You sign up for it, you get the dashboard, and this is where you maximize it. You just fill it out, you get your address, you get your services in there, and you can also get data about how people are seeing Google My Business. So you can even use this for tracking as well to see how well you're doing. And you can look at your reviews and you can respond to your reviews, all kinds of things. So sign up for it and you will have access to this. And then if anybody here wants to learn more about search engine optimization, there are all kinds of websites. The two at the top are very well respected. They've been around forever. And if you really want to nerd out on it, you could do that. I'm also a member of the Seattle Search Network, and you can join us at our meetings. They've been free since COVID. So we have all kinds of things. Like we even had one about Google My Business. We have all kinds of things that could be useful to you. So I encourage you to come to our meetings, and you can find out about it at that website. So that's the SEO component. And I encourage you to download the guide, and that gets deeper into it as well. So I want to talk about conversion, because conversion is so important. You can't just get traffic to your website. You've got to get people to buy something. And we're going to talk about the very top line things that help your conversion, what we call CRO. So first of all, you really need to think, how much traffic do you actually have to get to actually make any money, right? So the average conversion rate is somewhere under 3%, believe it or not. So you have to send quite a bit of traffic. If like the average order is $100, you've got to send quite a lot of traffic even to make $500, right? And this is average, right? Your average order might be much lower, or it could be much higher. Your conversion rate, if you haven't had an e-commerce store before, it's going to be much lower to start out with, probably. But there are ways to impact that. The whole idea is to keep driving that conversion rate up. That's the holy grail. That's what we're shooting for. So when you think about a website, once somebody lands on your page, you need to take them from your home page, which is like a portal page where you have products and your catalog and what you're about, what makes you different, and you have lifestyle imagery, and you build trust. It looks professional. You have a good return policy. You have all kinds of things that help people feel comfortable with literally buying from you. The fact that you have a physical store is very good, because that gives people even more confidence. You drive them through. You have testimonials to support what you're talking about. You have reviews. You motivate people. You have the buy button, and they convert, right? They buy something. And those are your money pages. So everything you do ahead of that drives people to those money pages and checkout ultimately. Here's just one example of that idea where there's some kind of trigger that somebody has. I want to make jewelry. I'm a beginner. What do I do? Well, I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to search jewelry making instructions. And then the red parts end up being, what could you have on your website that drives people through that process? Well, you have a landing page that's all about what we call a pillar page with all kinds of content. It could be video, it could be pictures, it could be an article, whatever it is, all about that particular idea. Here's a great page that will tell you everything about being a beginner jewelry maker. And then you link them to a place where there's a wish list of here's the starter tools that you're going to need. And then maybe somebody picks one, like I need a soldering gun. I have the other things, I just need that. And then there's a buy button and off they go. So whatever you're selling, you want to think about what's in the person's head, where are they going to go to look for it, typically search. What kind of information can I provide to them that's going to help them on their journey of purchasing? So whatever your customer journey is, that's what you want to feed content and have content to support that journey. And then on your website, some basic merchandising essentials. You want to not show everything in the kitchen sink. I think we talked about that in part 1, but you want to almost recommend products when they first get there. Here are some of our best sellers. Here's the popular things. Help people with their navigation find what they're looking for. You want to have lifestyle images that give a feeling about what you're offering, how someone will feel if they buy what you're offering. You could have video as well. And then even if you get sophisticated and depending on how deep your catalog is, you could have multimedia navigation where you literally have pictures rather than just words that show people different aspects or categories on your website. That's just the beginning. I have a whole list here of things you could be doing to improve your conversion. So first of all, free shipping. I mean, Amazon has set the bar on that, but you can figure out at what price point that works for you. Coupon codes, very popular. Value-based pricing, not just free, not just cheap, but you really have to push the value. And that has a lot to do with how you describe your products, how you talk about your company, all the things that help people understand that when they spend their money, they're getting value for their money. Then they have to trust you. Like, if I order from you, is it going to show up? Will it not be broken? Can I return it if I have a problem? If I put in a credit card, is it secure? You want to get reviews that confirms, that gives people more trust, not only about your store, but about you give good customer support. You answer the phone, maybe you respond an email within 24 hours, whatever it is, people want to feel confident. And having reviews that respond or speak to those things is very useful in building trust. And then a good shopping experience. Make it easy to find products, good navigation, as I said, good high quality product imagery. I can't tell you how many people who have e-commerce stores have bad pictures. Pictures are so important. I'm going to give you an example of that shortly. And then detailed product descriptions. You can have videos, you can have demos, you can have 3D. Sometimes people use platforms that kind of spin the product around so you can see all the sides. Very important to try to replicate the in-store experience to the 2D space. And then smooth checkout. Let customers check out as a guest, like they don't have to log in to actually buy something, until they get to the actual purchase with the credit card. Show the shopping cart contents, and then typically whatever platform you're using will have that kind of functionality. And make it easy. If there's a form they have to fill out, don't make it too complex. And then customer support and marketing, live chat software. If you're around to answer during business hours, you could have a live chat as needed. You don't have to have that, but it could help. Send emails if people leave before purchasing, and that, like in Shopify, that's a built-in functionality. And oftentimes people will purchase later, even though they have left your site, if they get that email reminding them that they were looking at something. That really does work. So those are the key things. So I discovered this website recently called Spongelay, or however you pronounce that. And this site is like marketing to the maximum. It's unbelievable. They have video. They have these incredible images. You can see this delicious, spongy, soapy sponge. They have packaging that is beautiful, beautifully designed, great color palette. They even have made in the USA. They offer free shipping. They have this logo that really isn't very fancy. It's basically a font-based logo. So they didn't really invest in the logo as much as they did the photography and the packaging. It's really incredible. And at the end of the day, all this place is selling is sponges. It's amazing, right? You take a sponge, you inject it with some lavender or whatever flavor of the day they're doing, that you put some paper labeling on it with the cute little ribbon, and literally they're selling these for like 15 bucks. And I can't imagine it costing them more than $1 or $2, you know, once they do volume to create this daisy shaped sponge. But it's incredible. I mean, I think they're doing really well. I don't have any data on how much they're selling, but they're really pushing this whole thing. I'll even show you this other page, even more marketing. They show new arrivals. They've got Instagram imagery plugged in. They've got a auto replenish you could get on this monthly program where they'll send you a new one every month, a refer a friend program. They are really, really pushing it. They have tons of reviews. So they must be selling something. Usually reviews are based on purchase, not just somebody, they brought in a whole bunch of people, but literally people bought something and then they wrote a review, and they have hundreds of reviews. And they do everything possible to grab somebody's email so they can continue to communicate. So if you could bring your website to this level of sophistication, it could really, really work. It's incredible how much they have done, and they're selling sponges. So I encourage you, go check out their website. It's pretty amazing. And then the sale doesn't end once you are done. Having customer care packages with a little, I mean, you might be small enough in the beginning where you could have a little handwritten note. You could have a refer a friend card. You can throw in a coupon so you get them to come back to buy something else. And you could even throw in a little gift. I still talk about this thing. I ordered something, I don't know, like a couple of years ago even. And I think I ordered lip balm or something. And they actually threw in like a little purse, a little zippered bag that probably cost them nothing. That was probably even from somebody they buy products from. And they just threw it in as a freebie. It wasn't something I paid for. And I still talk about it, that they send me something that I didn't even order. So if you can throw in some extras that don't cost you much, but the recipient will think it has a lot of value, or it's a surprise, that can be, you know, you might have a customer for life with something so simple. They will remember you. They will remember it. That can really help you. So if we think about priorities about your website, right? So what do you do first? You research your keywords, you use Google's keyword planner, and you look at Google Trends, and you start getting an idea of what words you want to optimize around. That's important for SEO. Then you want to think about how to merchandise your site, like we just talked about. Review the pages I just gave you, go to Spongelay and see what they're doing and see what you can afford to do. But I would definitely say having great product images is so important. And it doesn't have to be of everything right away. In the first section we talked about, in the first segment of e-commerce, we talked about you don't have to have every product on your e-commerce site to start with. The ones that are really going to set you apart, and get good photos of those and get those up on your website. And then do the on-site SEO. Download my guide, read through it, I wrote it as simply as I could. And then optimize your homepage, your category pages, and your product pages to start. And then you can start thinking about other content that you can optimize. But at least that would be good to get you going. And then get the Google stack, sign up for all of these, get Google Analytics, make sure you connect it to your store, and then sign up for Google My Business and make sure you go to that dashboard and fill it out as much as possible with accurate information, accurate address. And then sign up for Google Search Console and make sure you load a sitemap. And they give you instructions for doing that. And I even talk about that in my guide about how to do that. And then you're going to want to start getting comfortable looking at your data. I mean, if you already have a website, even though you don't have an e-commerce website, you're going to have data to look at if you had hooked up Google Analytics. It doesn't do retroactive. It only goes from when you sign up and add it to your website going forward. So I definitely encourage you, start looking at your traffic, start thinking about where your traffic is coming from. Look at the SEO and start getting some understanding of how that works. I teach classes about that too. But you know, you can at least get a head start there and start thinking about that conversion data once you hook up your store to that analytics. So that's my presentation for today. In part 3, we're going to start talking about all the other things you can do to drive traffic. But the SEO is the most important. And then the most important thing in the part 3 will be more of that organic content that will start getting you those inbound links that become so important to how you work. And we're going to talk about email marketing as well. And being that you already have stores, I'm hoping you already have email lists, and we can talk about how you might even try to maximize and derive even more traffic from your existing customers and drive them to e-commerce. So you can start offloading some of the work you're doing in store to the online experience. So there you have it. I'm very open to answering any questions you might have. Anything about marketing at all, I'll try to answer. And there we have it. So hopefully you have a lot of questions and so forth. So I'm just going to take it off this for now.
Then Robin, will you make me the
Stop
host
there.
again?
I will.
I will unmute everyone because I don't see any questions in the Q&A.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll get them live.
Let's see.
I'll drink a little water while we're waiting.
Everyone should have the option to unmute in just a moment, and you are welcome to ask any question you have.
Should they raise their hand first or just wing it?
I think it's a small enough group, people can just
Yeah.
talk if they need to.
Okay, so hit me. I mean, was the information clear?
Yes, it's good. And this is Erin. How do we get the worksheets, the documentation that you were talking about with the steps? Is that emailed to us or?
Madison, you want to take that one or?
Yeah, so I have the presentation, and right after this, I'm going to send around a survey. And once you fill out the survey, then I send you the presentation.
Oh, bribery. I like it.
It'll take 2 minutes.
That was an easy question.
One question we had in the Q&A is, what is the ideal size for photos on website?
Well, that will depend on your template. So for example, some websites will say, well, you want a minimum of 1,500 pixels wide. But the whole idea really is, depending on the template, if you can get the image down to even smaller and then optimize it, it will load even faster. It'll be even smaller, but not to get too technical. If you write to me, I have a guide that talks about how to size images, and I can send it to you if you want. It's a PDF. So if you
Yes,
write to me, that's bribery too. So, but you'll have to write to me specifically. So it's robin@blockbeta.com, ROBBIN @blockbeta.com. And I will be happy to send you that, and that will go into more detail. And it even has ideas for how do you choose images. But the other thing you want to think about is you don't always want too small an image size, because don't forget you have mobile, and most of the templates are mobile responsive. So you kind of need a little bit bigger one so it can flex with your site. So it isn't always precisely like what you see on a desktop, if you know what I mean. So they'll give you like a recommended minimum, and then you're going to want to optimize it, which means, and it's not like search engine optimization. This is so confusing, but optimizing it means that you reduce the file size, like you're taking out some of the clarity of an image, essentially, which is less data. And that makes the file size smaller, but you want to reduce it in such a way that you don't lose the quality of the image. So it's a matter of finding that balance. And there are tools for doing that, like PicMonkey or Tiny Pics, or I mentioned some of those in my guide, what you can use. You can use Photoshop if you're that sophisticated, or have your website, whoever's helping you to build your website, they should be optimizing your images as well.
Can you give your email again? It's ROBBIN at
Block, B as in boy, LOCK, like block, beta, like alpha beta, B as in boy, ETA.com. Blockbeta.com. Did you get that?
Yeah.
I can type it in the chat. Maybe that would help. Duh. Forgot about that.
Does
And
anyone
it's
else
on the
have any-
presentation too, if you forget this.
Mhm.
So can I send that? Oh, that worked. There you go. There you go. And I have other stuff you can download there too. Like free stuff. So what kind of stores do you guys have? Maybe I'll take a few minutes and
chocolate, Bean Bar Chocolate Company, and cafe, Indie Chocolate.
oh, very nice. Love it. Oh, that should translate very well to e-commerce. Are you doing e-commerce already?
Yes.
Oh, how is it going?
It's going okay. It's going okay. There's always room for improvement, and I'm concerned about the whole change with Google and speed of loading and things like that. Just making sure that that's not going to be a
Which
hiccup.
change with Google are you referring to?
Aren't they, as far as how they're giving a preference to faster loading?
They've been
pages?
doing that for years already.
Oh, but aren't they doing like another kind of bigger update on that?
Well, they always do updates, but I don't know if there's a new mobile update. I haven't looked, but the newest thing is something about like how they track people. The GDPR stuff. But if you do the optimization I'm talking about, I try to stay as up to date with even through that Seattle Search Network I told you about, to make sure that I'm giving you like the core things you need to do. If you can get some of this core stuff, I do this for all my clients, and they've done very well with it. So.
Any other questions?
Oh my goodness.
Comments?
People just want to go outside. I know it.
Well, like I said, after this, I'm going to be sending around a survey, and in there's a section where you can, if you want to have some time to think, you can put your questions in there, and then I can connect with Robin and help answer those that way too.
And you can reach out to me as well. If I may say so, I offer a free 30-minute consult off my website. You can just go there and sign up. And very happy to help you with any questions you think of later. And we really do. It's amazing how much you get out of 30 minutes. And it sometimes goes longer, I admit it. But I can set you off in the right direction so you feel a little more confident if you want to do that.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Okay. So I have a problem with inventory, and I was wondering, how can I do by order on e-commerce? Like, is there a way to do it? Like they purchase it now and it will be ready in like 4 weeks.
Oh, you're doing custom things, or are you saying that you don't want to order something until they actually buy it?
No, is it possible to do like in Etsy? You can like buy something the pre-order, like pre-order something.
Oh, so that will depend on the platform you're using, what functionality is built into it. But
Mhm.
there's often also additional plugins or software functionality you can purchase to match the buyer experience you want to create. So that's more about building the site, not SEO, obviously.
Okay. So if I potentially, I can't offer something that I like, they will get it, but it will take a while to get it.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would do is make sure you communicate that very clearly on your
Mhm.
website, that that is the experience they should have. You don't want to make someone angry by saying, where is my stuff? Right.
Yeah.
But it can
Mhm.
also hurt you too if somebody is expecting faster delivery on something, like if your competitors do it faster. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that would depend on what you're offering. Right.
Mhm.
But in terms of the e-commerce functionality, you can set it up typically depending on the software that they order it now and then the delivery is later. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Mhm. Okay.
We had another question come through. What is the
Oh.
best way to categorize products?
Uh,
New bestsellers, gift recipients, etc.
you know, that's, you know, you can do anything you want, right? If you have a holiday period coming up, like Mother's Day gifts, right? Why wouldn't you have that? The whole idea is thinking how the customer wants to purchase and using the categories to guide them through, right? So you could do featured products, you could do recommended products, you could go new arrivals like we saw on the sponge site. But then you can think about how your customers typically like to purchase. Do you have a peak selling period? Mother's Day, Father's Day, back to school, whatever the retail calendar is. You can adjust your categories on the fly. That's the beautiful thing about e-commerce, is that you can look at a retail calendar and say, oh, what do I have coming up? What categories do I want to create? And it doesn't mean you have to reveal all of them at the same time. If Mother's Day is coming up, you turn on the Mother's Day one. If something else is coming up, you put on that. So Christmas time, you could have gifts for under $10. So that's a marketing thing in general, even in the physical retail space. How are you thinking about what is in a customer's mind and what are they ready to buy? And how can I set up my store to be a good match for what they're looking for? And you would do that in the e-commerce space as well. Does that help? I hope. Oh, no response. Oh.
Yes.
Well, I hope that helps.
Yes.
Any other
Good.
questions?
Yes, thanks.
Maybe not. Okay, countdown. Madison, you want to wrap it or?
Yeah, okay, so it looks like there's no more questions, but you'll still have a chance to ask questions when I send that through. But thank you so much, Robin. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me or Robin for anything you guys need. Okay,
And we
have a
hope
good
you
night.
join for part 3.
Yes, and please come for part 3 next Wednesday, same time at 5.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, tell everyone. Okay, good night, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
you. Bye.
Bye.